All right, it's 3:43 a.m. here in Edinburgh, Scotland, and I'm on the bridge of this boat. So I got to be quiet. I've got to hold the mic close to my mouth. That this boat is a hotel. We've got a room on here, and I have snuck out at 3:43 to talk about the 49ers defensive coordinator interview process on the bridge. Look, you could even see the wheel back behind me. They've converted this to a dining room, so it's really cool. But the 49ers have officially conducted 3 interviews. This is according to Matt Mayoko with Raheem Morris, as expected. I've been telling you guys that he's a serious candidate for this defensive coordinator position for a few days now. With Gus Bradley, Kyle Shanahan himself said that during the course of the 49ers end of season press conference. And a third really, really interesting one, Joe Woods, who's been with San Francisco before. In fact, he's been a major catalyst of defensive evolution for the 49ers. Back in 2019, Joe Woods came through the 49ers, and he was their defensive backs coach and defensive pass game coordinator under Saleh. And that marked the transition from majority or sole cover 3 for the 49ers zone defense to running a lot of quarters mixed into that cover 3. So when Joe Woods, who is a DB coach background, who's been a defensive coordinator at a number of different spots, came over in 2019 before he left in 2020 to be the Browns defensive coordinator, he left a massive, massive imprint on this evolving 49ers defense because they no longer run just the Seattle system anymore. Anybody saying they just run the Seattle system, well, that's outdated. That was in 2017 and 2018. They've had to evolve with the rest of the league. And Joe Woods, who just interviewed for the 49ers defensive coordinator position, was a very, very large part of that. So this is not over yet, but it actually can be over. The 49ers are in the clear now to make a hire because they are Rooney Rule compliant. They might still be waiting, though, for Jim Schwartz. We've talked about him. He's still under contract with Cleveland, and that there is a chance that the 49ers are very, very interested in hiring Jim Schwartz to be Kyle Shanahan's Steve Spagnuolo. So maybe they want to see how that situation shakes out. And in the case of Raheem Morris, if he's the favorite to land this job, the Arizona Cardinals head coaching situation isn't set yet, and he's still in the mix for that job. They need to interview Clint Kubiak again, and Clint Kubiak is obviously coaching the Super Bowls, the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. So the musical chairs have not stopped at this point, and it might still be a few days before the 49ers make a hire if they feel in this situation right now that they want a Raheem Morris, so they want to look at somebody like a Jim Schwartz. But they are, as I speak right now, on the bridge of this boat in Edinburgh, Scotland at 3:47 a.m. The 49ers are Rooney Rule compliant. So technically they can pull the trigger on a defensive coordinator hiring immediately. So just brace yourselves for that. Even though I'm 8 hours ahead of you guys on the Pacific Coast, I'm bracing myself for that. I do want to talk a little bit more about the evolving schematics and make this as informational as possible because I do think that this is fascinating following Robert Saleh's second departure. He is now with the Tennessee Titans, where he had his introductory press conference. For you guys today, for me, since I'm already in the morning of January 30th, happy birthday to my dad, Alan Lombardi, by the way. But I'm on January 30th, so that introductory press conference was the other day. I've talked a little bit about Raheem Morris and the schematic diversity that he has brought to the table in the past, but I think I need to emphasize it again. We could talk about everything that Morris has run because he's run odd man fronts, he's run 4-man fronts, he's run different coverage variations on the back end. He's obviously been a head coach twice. When I just mentioned that Joe Woods diversified the 49ers secondary, they weren't just running that Seattle style cover 3 anymore in 2019 after he became the defensive pass game coordinator. I think it would behoove me to also talk about Raheem Morris and the schematic diversity that he's been able to bring to the table. He ran 3-4 with the Rams. He ran 3-4 with Atlanta. And, we call that Fangio style defense. but he has worked with Jeff Ulbrich as well. And Ulbrich, the former 49ers linebacker from the South Bay originally, he was Robert Saleh's defensive coordinator in New York. And with Ulbrich, there's going to be more 4-3 kind of stuff. And Raheem Morris has been looped into that. So he's a coach, especially I think because of his offensive background that I talked about. Raheem Morris has been a high-level defensive coordinator, but he also was Kyle Shanahan's wide receivers coach in Atlanta for a high-powered offense in 2016. I think that his perspective on the game from all different positions, not just from one stale defensive position, has allowed him to kind of evolve and flow with different fronts, different schemes. And I think that makes Raheem a very, very intriguing candidate for the 49ers because they are at a crossroads defensively moving forward. They ran the 4-down front, and they probably will stick with that because I think they're interested in Jim Schwartz as well, who runs a wide 9. But they've run the 4-man front over the course of this entire Kyle Shanahan tenure, but they've evolved their coverages to keep up with the league. They've also dabbled with more blitzing here and there with different coordinators like Steve Wilkes in 2023. I know that wasn't highly successful for the 49ers, but there have been times, even with Robert Saleh last year and Upton Stout, the rookie out of Western Kentucky, who was so good at everything that he did on the field. There have been times when the 49ers have brought a little bit more aggressiveness and have actually lobbied, when you talk to some of these teams' defensive backs, for more man coverage so that they can be more aggressive with the pressure packages that they bring up front. And obviously pressure was a big issue after guys got hurt last year. You had Nick Bosa go down. You had Mykel Williams go down. You had Yetur Gross-Matos go down for long parts of this season, just along the defensive line. 49ers ranked last in the league in sacks. They were down at the bottom in pressure rate. You think, how do you avoid a repeat of that? Obviously, you can't have guys get hurt at the level that they did in 2025. But how can you maybe set yourself up to insulate some injury issues up front if they do happen again, so you're not at the very bottom of the league in some of these pressure numbers? And I think that the 49ers would be open to a defensive coordinator who is comfortable bringing more pressure, but can do it within the framework of what they've already been running. In 2023, Steve Wilkes wasn't really operating within the framework of what the 49ers had already been running. And Kyle Shanahan told him, hey, you could be like my dad. You could be like Mike Shanahan when he came from outside the system in 1992 to be the 49ers offensive coordinator. You could spend all off season digesting and learning this stuff, and then we could try to meld it together. And obviously it never fully melded together. And there was frustration already a few weeks into the season where they yanked Steve Wilkes down from the booth to the field. Like the marriage just wasn't what the 49ers needed it to be. In 2024, when they hired Nick Sorensen, well, yeah, he was in the building. It was somebody that was already in the system, but Nick was not very experienced, and he wasn't a good defensive coordinator because of it. He definitely needed more seasoning, so that didn't work for the 49ers. They got the experience back in 2025 with Robert Saleh when they were healthy. I think everything was great. Those first couple of weeks of the season, this was a top 5 defense for the 49ers. And I think that he kept things cobbled together as well as he possibly could over the course of the injurious run of 2025. But obviously the defense did finish in the 20s, and the deficiencies, which can be tied back to all those injuries, did significantly hurt the 49ers. So that's why they find themselves at this crossroads moving forward. Guys are coming back, but they're also evolving into some new personnel at certain spots. I think that injuries or not, that they were not nearly good enough at defensive tackle and at safety last year. And whomever's the new defensive coordinators may want an overhaul at some of those positions, especially if they go to Jim Schwartz, if that ends up being possible. He's still under contract with Cleveland. I think you can expect him to overhaul the secondary. I mean, Jim Schwartz ran man coverage at a higher rate than any defensive coordinator in football. Now, he runs a wide 9, which is the front that San Francisco has used ever since 2019. Since Chris Kasarik and Joe Woods both came in 2019. Woods just interviewed for the 49ers yesterday, I guess, here, since it's about 3 or 4 a.m. here over in Europe across the Atlantic Ocean. But when they moved to Chris Kasarik, who's a disciple of Jim Washburn, who worked with Jim Schwartz. Washburn was Jim Schwartz's longtime defensive line coach. When they moved to that wide 9, they stretched out the defensive line. They put the defensive ends far apart, to be able to run the hoop around the tackles. That worked with really good success for the 49ers to the point where they've kept it. I think they want to keep it because Chris Kasarik is married to that type of system. And I know that Jim Schwartz ran that type of system in Cleveland most recently. Like he really believes in that. But what Schwartz has done on the back end with all that league high rate of man coverage within top 10 blitz rate was something that I think Raheem Morris can also adapt to. It'd be interesting to see what Joe Woods would bring as a defensive coordinator, not just as a pass game coordinator on the back end, but what Jim Schwartz has brought in that realm has been radically different than what the 49ers have done over the course of the past 9 years. So at the very least, we know from this interview process that the 49ers are extremely open-minded to changes on defense, to a constant evolution on defense. They haven't officially interviewed Jim Schwartz, but we know that there's interest if Cleveland does let him out of his contract. And the fact that they've interviewed Raheem Morris with this background of, versatility, adaptability, different types of fronts, different types of coverages, different types of defense, different blitz rates on a year in, year out basis, that to me is significant about us looking into Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch's thought process about this defensive coordinator hire. When Raheem Morris was fired by the Bucs in 2012, Kyle Shanahan was the first person to call him. Morris ended up on the Redskins staff because Kyle Shanahan was with Washington at the time. In 2017, when Kyle Shanahan was hired as the 49ers head coach, Shanahan wanted to hire Raheem Morris as the defensive coordinator before he hired Robert Saleh. But Dan Quinn, who's also part of that whole Seattle-style tree, I mean, Quinn was out there and with the Seahawks and Robert Saleh. Dan Quinn blocked it because Quinn was the coach of the Falcons at the time. And Shanahan obviously was one of his lieutenants, and so was Raheem Morris. Shanahan wanted to take Morris with him, but obviously that didn't happen. If you look at the history of Raheem Morris, and we're going to go through the history of Joe Woods as well, since Woods is the new candidate that interviewed for the 49ers today. But Morris has got a fascinating background. It involves getting arrested with Kyle Shanahan back in, I believe it was 2005 when Kyle was still a quality control guy. They got arrested at the NFL Combine, and Kyle Shanahan was sticking up for Raheem Morris. Raheem didn't do anything wrong. He targeted. They were looking for a different suspect, and they threw Raheem to the ground. This is all in Mike Silver's book, and it's been documented in different articles. But the relationship between Kyle Shanahan and Raheem Morris goes way back, all the way to the days where they were both on Tampa's staff as low-level assistants in 2005. And then, just the background of Raheem from there. He went to Kansas State to be defensive coordinator for a year. Then he was the DB coach and the head coach of the Bucs. 07 to 2011, head coach from 09 to 11. He got fired from there. Shanahan was the first to call him, and he went to the Redskins, where he was the DB coach from 2012 to 2014. Then he went to the Falcons when Shanahan went back to the Falcons as the offensive coordinator, but he worked on the defensive side of the ball first in 2015. Then Raheem Morris in 2016 moved to wide receivers coach under Kyle Shanahan. So he switched sides. In 2016, high-powered number one offense. I mean, this was a historically good offense. Raheem Morris was the assistant head coach and Kyle Shanahan's wide receivers coach. He stuck around with the offense for the Falcons all the way through 2019. And then in 2019, they gave him split duties between offense and defense. He started coaching defensive backs on top of wide receivers. That shows you how talented of a coach Raheem Morris is, that he was able to work with both groups. You rarely see that over the course of the season. He was then the interim head coach for the Falcons in 2020 before the Rams, and Sean McVay, who's also part of the tree, hired him to be defensive coordinator in 2021. Raheem's first season with the Rams, they won the Super Bowl there. That stint with the Rams earned him the most recent Falcons head coaching opportunity. That was 2024 and 2025. He was fired. Now he's talking with the Cardinals, but he's also obviously talking with the 49ers, who are interested in bringing Raheem Morris in to be their defensive coordinator. So really, really cool, diverse background. We talked about the different fronts that Raheem Morris has run, and we talk about the different defenses that he's run. How about the diverse background, though, of the other interviewee today, Joe Woods? Woods, in 2019, he came to the 49ers to be that defensive pass game coordinator. What people don't remember is that he was a DC before then. In 2017 and 2018, he was the Denver Broncos defensive coordinator under, I believe, Vance Joseph was the head coach for the Broncos in 2017 and 2018. When that didn't go well, that went sideways for the Broncos. Joe Woods came to San Francisco, helped spearhead a big defensive philosophical shift in coverage in 2019. That earned him the Cleveland Browns defensive coordinator position for 3 years. Then he went to the Saints, where he was their defensive coordinator in 2023 and 2024 under Dennis Allen. And then after Allen was canned with the Saints, they did a whole staff change there. Joe Woods was back to his pass game coordinator, DB coach role with the Raiders under Pete Carroll. So obviously Carroll tree, Seattle system, if you want to go that far this last year, but the Raiders were a mess. And now he's no longer with the Raiders. And actually, I technically think that Joe Woods is still under contract with the Raiders, but there's been a whole staff upheaval there. So he can interview for a higher position. Now, there is an interesting twist here in that Daniel Bullock's, the 49ers DB coach, is no longer listed on the website. And the only reason that raises some red flags, sometimes they do some shuffling on this website, is because the 49ers requested permission from the Falcons to interview Justin Hood for their DB coach role last week. But the Falcons and their new coach, Kevin Stefanski, blocked the 49ers because that would have been a lateral move. And then you wonder, okay, why did the 49ers want to interview a DB coach? They weren't interviewing him for a defensive coordinator role. They would have been allowed to interview him for a higher move for defensive coordinator, but they weren't granted permission to interview him for that DB coach role. And so you say, wait, did Robert Saleh take Daniel Bullock's with him? It's possible. I mean, Saleh has yet to announce the full staff. He could take. I mean, Bullock's could be the defensive coordinator for all we know at one of these stops, because Robert Saleh is actually going to be calling plays, so he could still hire a DC though, and it could still be a technical promotion. Did the 49ers let go of Daniel Bullock? I don't know. I just don't see him on the website. That came to our attention here over the course of the past couple days. The next time that we talk to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, we should find out what exactly is going on at that DB coach spot, because the 49ers did run a try to interview Justin Hood for that role last week, but were denied by the Falcons. That leads me to wonder, Joe Woods, even though he's technically under contract with the Raiders right now, maybe if he doesn't get the 49ers defensive coordinator role, the Raiders move whatever direction they move at the head coaching position, there's a chance they might release Joe Woods from his contract. And maybe you could have a reprisal of 2019 when Joe Woods came in to be the 49ers defensive backs coach and defensive pass game coordinator. And that was a really good season for San Francisco when they had Woods in there. Diversifying the coverage. I mean, if you look at the lifespan of this 49ers defense, in 2017 and 2018, they weren't good. But they didn't have talent. They didn't have pass rushing talent yet, right? Cassius Marsh was like their best edge rusher in those seasons. So Saleh in 2019 was able to take this defense to a new level once they drafted Nick Bosa, once they traded for Dee Ford and gave him a big contract. When he was healthy, I mean, he was a monstrous performer for the 49ers. The back end, though, with Joe Woods coming in to diversify those coverages, I think tied together really well with what they saw with greater talent up front, which obviously was leveraged by was leveraged by a Chris Kasarik, who with his wide nine was obviously revolutionary for what this 49ers defense did. So I'll answer some questions. It's really early. I am jet lagged. It's 4:03 a.m. now here in Scotland. Those of you just joining, this is where I currently am. I'm on board this ship right now. I'm on the bridge of this ship. I mean, they even have the dining table set up really nice behind me. Look, I'll even get up so you guys can see the setup. Dining table. You've got the wheel there. What is that called on a ship? The steering wheel? I don't know. It seems more decorative than anything at this point. And the whole ship is sleeping, but apparently I haven't bothered anybody yet. I was planning to sit down at this table and do this show, but it was like a conference room table yesterday afternoon when we first got in here. And now it's set up, I think, for breakfast. So I didn't want to get in trouble, and I'm trying to stay as quiet as possible here as we head into day two, just a couple days out here before we have to head back for Super Bowl week in San Francisco. All right, I'm going to move over to some questions and we can talk there. Kendrick Bourne. I guess he posted a new song. Kendrick Bourne has turned into a rapper. But also he's been asking people, do you guys want me back in the Bay? And the overwhelming majority of fans responded yes, they want Kendrick. I mean, how could you not like Kendrick Bourne? Kendrick Bourne is just such a positive, good dude. I like Kendrick Bourne. Here's his post. Doesn't look like he's in the Bay right now. It looks like he's somewhere very, very flat and suburban, as evidenced by this picture. But look at the overwhelming poll results. The people want Kendrick Bourne back. Yes. Ricky Pearsall's working. It doesn't look like surgery needed for Ricky Pearsall. It looked like he's going through the standard rehab, which was a question that we wondered, given the fact that the PCL had been dogging him since week 4. I mean, Ricky Pearsall was not up to speed for a good 3/4 of the season. But here he is, working hard, wearing some of that 49ers gear. You can see Ricky Pearsall and trying to get that knee back into good position. He was not running at full speed for the entirety of the season since week 4. So getting Pearsall back to full speed would be very, very big for the 49ers. Kyle Juszczyk wants the 49ers to investigate the electrical substation next to the team facility. He tells Front Office Sports, it's definitely been a talking point for years. I'm very much a science-driven person, and I want to see the numbers and the statistics. I wrote an article about that on the San Francisco Standard the other day that essentially echoed, or I guess Kyle Juszczyk spoke after me, so I couldn't echo him, but essentially fell along the same lines. We got video of Upton Stout already grinding. I know I talked about Upton Stout, and we're talking about the 49ers defense right now. So why don't we get this up? Oh, yep. There's Upton Stout working this offseason, indoor facility. And he was already big and strong. I mean, he put up the most bench press reps of any defensive back, cornerback at the NFL Combine. But Stout just looks more like a veteran now. He moves with more purpose than he did as a rookie. You could tell that he's gone through the NFL ringer for a year. This guy's a stud. This guy's a big, big part of whatever the 49ers do at defensive coordinator. Upton Stout is going to be a chess piece that coordinator is going to really enjoy using. So we are almost at 100,000. It'd be really cool to celebrate 100,000 over here in Europe while I'm here for a couple days. We're only like 50 subs away. It is climbing slowly but surely. It slowed down after the season, but to be the first to 100,000 real subscribers would be awesome. So if you guys want to hit that subscribe button right now, it would be very much appreciated. I mean, nobody else is waking up at 3 a.m. It is 3 a.m. here and doing deep dives on 49ers defensive coordinator candidates from ships. And like, I'm literally on board this thing right now. I'm at the very top of it. I'm on the bridge of this ship. We're in a, I think it's part of Edinburgh, or it's a neighboring town. It's called Leith. It's the port of Edinburgh. So the water is way too cold. I'm not getting out of this ship to go swimming. I wonder if they have Starlink. I wonder if that's how the internet works so well here. Mike says, if Jim Schwartz comes, I wonder if Upton Stout moves to safety. Well, you know, if anybody thinks that's crazy, remember that nowadays you have these amorphous defenses to match the adaptable offenses, and you could flex the safety down into a bigger nickel type of role, and then teams do that a lot anyway. So it's not like his job would be massively different. You rarely just have one safety sitting back the whole time. I think you want Upton Stout, whatever you're running coverage wise, near the line of scrimmage because of his agility and his quickness and his strength. So even if he did technically move into a safety role with whomever the 49ers hired defensive coordinator, I think that Upton Stout would be somebody the 49ers kept near that line of scrimmage. I guess I haven't talked about Gus Bradley yet, and people are talking about, here's the overarching thing. I think Kyle Shanahan has put himself into really, really good position, and the 49ers in good position here, because Gus Bradley's a nice high floor option, and he's learned the system and how the 49ers do things for a year. Again, it's not about Seattle style or whatever. Yes, he comes from that tree, but it's evolved, as I've demonstrated over the course of the past 27 minutes. It is more about avoiding the problem in 2023, which was Steve Wilkes didn't mesh with the building, and you couldn't force fit it. They tried to, but it didn't work. And avoiding the problem of 2024, inexperience with Nick Sorensen. Gus Bradley, because he's already been there for a year, helps the 49ers avoid both of those potential problems. That is your high floor defensive coordinator. Somebody that could keep this thing running, give you competence that you need, because ultimately it's going to come down to the talent. It's going to come down to the players anyway. The 49ers would be able to establish some sort of continuity because it's been 4 coordinators in 4 years. But they also now, because Bradley's under contract and is around, the 49ers can also afford to take a bigger swing and see, Jim Schwartz is who I talked about the other day, but look, I've been on the Raheem Morris thing. I told you guys for over a week on the Raheem Morris thing, right? It's literally been a week, and now officially he has interviewed with the 49ers. Somebody like Joe Woods, there's history there. Kyle likes when he's got some commonality, some shared experience with some of these coaches, and the way that the Steve Wilkes thing blew up, you can understand why he might like that. So to me, it's optionality for the 49ers. They love their option power. They've cultivated option power. They made sure that they weren't stuck out in the weeds like they were in 2023 and 2024. In 23, they went to the Super Bowl, so the hiring cycle was already far along by the time it was all over. In 2024, they went to Nick Sorensen, and that seemed to be a mess. In 2025, they might have been hung out to dry, but they were okay since Saleh ended up coming there. This year, they are in much better base position with Gus Bradley already on staff, and they can take a swing for a higher ceiling from that position. looking at some of the questions here. What are my thoughts on trading for a wide receiver versus drafting one? I think that the 49ers could acquire wide receivers through multiple different avenues. You could get a veteran through a trade, yes, but you could also sign somebody, a mid-tier guy like a Romeo Doubs in free agency. That's the name that I keep on coming up with. I think that you could draft somebody and grab a free agent. In fact, I think that might be the preferred course of action for the 49ers. I think you need to load the receiving room up with constant talent. But I love the question. I just say all of the above. Make sure that you build that ability to separate if you're the 49ers. What am I going to do to celebrate once I hit 100,000? What should I do to celebrate once I hit 100,000? We're at 99,949. 49. Good number. 51 away from 100,000. Maybe I'm going to go back to bed probably for a little bit right now because it is 4:14 a.m. here in Scotland. And then if you guys have good food recommendations, we're going to St. Andrews next. That's going to be today. We're in Edinburgh now. We'll have a nice morning in Edinburgh. We're going to go down to St. Andrews, and we're going to go back to London, then we're going to go back to San Francisco. I mean, it's going to be this little loop, but we figured we'd get out of town for a few days. But you guys can let me know what I should do once I do hit 100,000. We are at 99,949. Play the bagpipes at 100,000. Well, we had some bagpipes in the show last night. Make sure you go watch that. Talked about the Mac Jones trade interest from the Minnesota Vikings. It was actually really, really cool. Those of you who didn't see it, you can go check it out. It is on the channel. Here, I'll give you a little sneak preview. 49ers update. I got to get up here. Got to take the ship off of here. There. 49ers update. We have moved time zones. We're in Edinburgh, Scotland, and intel from the Senior Bowl, a long way away from here in Mobile, Alabama, is that the Vikings are interested in trading for Mac Jones. There's the Lombardi herself cameo. She's got hot chocolate here in Edinburgh. Had her favorite little coffee shop, I guess. That's right. Absolute cinema. You love the cameo from Lombardi herself. You want to watch the rest of that? Go ahead and head to the channel right now. It's a corresponding video. Go check it out. Hit that subscribe button. I think I'm going to go back to bed from the bridge of the ship in Scotland. This is one of the more fun lives. At 4 a.m., I sign off, and I'll talk to you